On a dark night, we see a ruined fortress with fallen figures scattered everywhere. Then our protagonist walks calmly, sword in hand, past a fallen figure with a smile on his face. Stopping midway up the stairs, he looks over all the men he's defeated alone so far. Soon after, his hand tightens on the hilt of his sword because he knows the job isn't over yet. Suddenly, a brute appears in front of him, seeming to be the last enemy standing. The big guy is a little surprised but tries to keep up his tough guy act to intimidate our hero. However, our boy isn't fazed and asks if the man's name is Gak. Gak is shocked and asks how our protagonist knows his name. Our protagonist then says he understands him not remembering, as many people have passed through there. Even so, he's a bit hurt because he waited a long time for this moment. Gak then realizes our hero was a prisoner, and now he understands the situation is bad. Because of this, he becomes desperate and starts looking for a way to get away as quickly as possible. His eyes show pure panic because he knows he has no chance of winning. However, before he can do anything, our boy lunges forward at an absurd speed. And with a single swift strike, our hero hits the man's head, ending the fight. With the final blow delivered, our hero says it's rude to turn your back while he's talking. He threatens to take Gak's limbs and tells him to remember 12 years ago. Gak starts to remember and connects our hero to an escort agency. With his cold gaze, we are taken back to memories of the past. We see our boy younger and other prisoners being taken away by bandits. In the past, he was chained up while a hot iron was being prepared. One of the bandits picks up the iron with a sadistic smile. The hot iron is pressed against the young man's side. Our hero screams in agony in the past. Back in the present, the boy attacks Gak again. Gak shows shock and pain from the new attack. Our boy strikes it back repeatedly. Gah. More strikes follow, showing his brutality. The hero stands over the now defeated Gak. He asks, "Do you remember the name Samajian?" Finishing him off, Gak, fallen on the ground, asks confusedly what our hero is talking about. Then our protagonist reveals that 12 years ago, he was captured and sold into servitude by Gak. The big guy finally remembers everything and goes into a total panic. Desperate, he starts begging for his life, apologizing for what he did. But our hero doesn't accept it, and says he shouldn't forget the man he sold into servitude. He then grabs Gak's head forcefully, preparing for the final blow. With a chilling smile, our protagonist reveals that his name is Samajian, and with a single move, he ends the man's life, completing his revenge. The impact of the blow sends Gak's life force flying everywhere. Now, with the lifeless figure on the ground, Samajian just observes the result of his revenge. With his objective completed, our hero calmly sheathes his sword. He then gives a slight smile of satisfaction for finally having finished it all. Samajian declares that this was the last time he would get his hands dirty and that he will now live a normal life. However, the ground suddenly starts to shake and explode all around. Soon after, a giant silhouette emerges from the dust, showing that the fight isn't over yet. However, the silhouette was actually a muscular young man who shouts for his boss. He then appears, smiling amidst the mess, and announces that all the prisoners have been freed. The big guy approaches Samajian and asks how he feels after getting his revenge. Samajian says it wasn't as satisfying as he thought, leaving his companion thoughtful. They then realize the master of the fortress isn't there, but decide to deal with that later. The companion then asks excitedly if they are going to Samajian's hometown now. Our protagonist looks up at the sky and confirms that he can finally go home. He then reflects that his bloody path as the #1 sword of the demonic cult ends here. And so they leave behind the fortress and all the dark past it represents. The scene then changes to a clean blue sky, showing that a new day has begun. Now we see the two walking through a lush green field towards their destination. Samajian asks if his companion is sure he wants to follow him, and he confirms he has nowhere else to go. Our protagonist remembers that his friend's first memory is of training in the demonic cult. He then admits that after being trapped in that place for so long, getting out feels like a dream. Finally, we get a glimpse of the imposing building of the demonic cult, where the two grew up. The scene then returns to the demonic cult, where our hero enters with firm steps. Inside a hall, Samajian faces his former master with a serious and determined look. This is Yahello, one of the cult's instructors, who doesn't look happy about the visit. Then our protagonist introduces himself before the instructor, who is seated at a lavish table. With a gesture of respect, our boy greets the man, showing the scars on his hands. Yahello observes him intently, seemingly analyzing our hero's every move. Soon after, the instructor begins to pour a drink as if preparing for a long conversation. He then says he had hoped Samajian wouldn't come, showing he doesn't want to release him. Despite this, Yahello offers a full bowl of the drink to our boy as a formal gesture. Samajian accepts the bowl without hesitation, showing he isn't afraid of any tricks. He then takes a cup and fills it with the drink, ready for whatever comes. Next, our protagonist drinks it all in one go, staring the instructor in the eyes. Yahello then starts talking about a promise the great leader of the cult made. The promise was that if they served for 10 years, they would be set free in the end. Sama Jian then states that the 10 years have passed and that he has fulfilled all the conditions. Guanhyo takes a sip and scoffs at the promise that was made to our hero. He then says that even with the factions unified, the cult is still not perfect, but Sama Jian corrects him, saying the condition was to defeat the 10 supremes of the demonic path. And now all of them are on their knees before the cult's leader, and Guanhyo confirms this is true. The instructor becomes thoughtful as he takes another sip of his drink, analyzing the situation. In his mind, he remembers that our boy always stood out but never to this extent. In fact, in terms of fighting, he was even weaker than a boy named Chiel Wu. However, everything changed after he returned from a mission in the Ghost Gate sect. After that mission, his killing aura vanished, and his whole demeanor changed completely. His martial arts reached a level that no one could even imagine. Guanhyo then wonders what on earth happened to him in that place. Back in the present, our protagonist just apologizes for what happened in the past. However, the instructor crushes the cup in his hand and tells him to save his empty words. He then says it was a blessing to have known him, even if for Sama Jian it was a terrible fate. Finally, he promises never to forget his contributions, but our protagonist collapses on the table. However, it was all just a dream, and our hero thanks the master for his freedom. He then turns to leave and tells Guanhyo to take care, as he won't be back. One of the guards gets angry at our boy's audacity, but the instructor stops him. Sama Jian doesn't even care about the commotion and continues on his way out of the hall, and so, he finally leaves the cult behind, ready to start his new life. Outside, his muscular friend was waiting and hiding for them to leave together. The big guy then gives a little wave to the suckers as he flees with our protagonist. Now on the road, our hero wonders if his family will recognize him after 10 years. Nearing his village, his friend points to a giant tree and asks what that is. Our protagonist is shocked, because that tree was the guardian deity of his village. He then says that his parents and the elders performed rituals there every year. Besides that, he remembers climbing the tree to play with his younger siblings. With a smile on his face, he touches the tree and says he's finally back home. His friend then jokes that he thought he was born a stone statue. Suddenly, 3 children appear and say that outsiders can't touch that tree. Our protagonist then says he's not an outsider and asks if the children are from Peach Blossom Village. The little ones are surprised and ask how he knows their village's name. With a smile, he explains that the tree is the village's guardian deity, and that he lived there as a child. The boys are shocked by the revelation but still seem a little suspicious. To prove it, he points in a direction and says his house is near a small lake. And he confirms he's telling the truth with a gentle smile on his face. However, one of the girls yells at him, calling him a liar and leaving our hero confused. Sama Jian then asks why she thinks he's lying, not understanding her reaction. The little girl then says that house belongs to A-Do, and that he doesn't have a brother who looks like a thug. She even adds that he can't be the uncle because she's never seen such an ugly uncle. Our protagonist's friend gets furious for being called an ugly thug, and the children run away. Sama Jian becomes thoughtful and wonders who A-Do is, as he's never heard that name before. Meanwhile, his friend takes the opportunity to pick a peach from a nearby tree. And without a second thought, he takes a bite of the fruit to see if it's good. The big guy is amazed by the taste and understands why the village has that name. His friend then offers him a peach, but our hero refuses, focused on getting home soon. The scene then shows us the landscape our protagonist described to the children. He then stops in front of the house he dreamed so much of returning to and gets emotional. Our boy is surprised to see that the place is exactly as he remembered. His friend asks if this is it, and our protagonist confirms with a smile on his face. Suddenly, a voice from inside the house asks who's there, and the two approach. Our hero becomes serious, as he didn't expect to find anyone living in his old house. Soon after, an older man appears at the door with a not so friendly expression. He's not alone, as several villagers accompany him, ready for anything. The little girl who argued with him earlier is also there, watching everything carefully. The man then says that this is A-Do's house and asks what they want there. Our protagonist is confused and says that this is the Sama family's house and asks who they are. He then takes a better look at the man and recognizes him, asking if he is Mr. Jang. Sama Jian gets excited and says he remembers him from the village chief's house. Mr. Jang is shocked and asks who our hero is, not recognizing him. Our hero holds Mr. Jang's hands to try to make him remember. And he says that he is Sama Jian, the boy who used to live there, but the man doesn't recognize the name. Suddenly, Mr. Jang's eyes widen as if he has a vague memory. He then asks, shocked, if our protagonist is the little boy who disappeared years ago. To prove his identity, Sama Jian shows a scar he got in a childhood fight. Mr. Jang is completely stunned because now he remembers everything perfectly. Then he hugs our hero, crying with emotion for finally seeing him again after so long. Amidst the tears, the man asks where he has been and what happened during all these years. Later that night, the two sit down to talk and catch up. Mr. Jang, still in disbelief, asks if he really is the Jian who disappeared 12 years ago on a mission. Our protagonist confirms and remembers that Mr. Jang tried to stop him because the mission was dangerous. The man then says that everyone in the village thought he had perished on that job. And after a moment of silence, Mr. Jang asks how he has been all this time. Our boy gets a serious and distant look, thinking about everything he's been through. Because the truth is, his last few years have been a nightmare on battlefields. His story begins on a battlefield where he faced a powerful masked warrior. In the midst of the fight, he remembers the suffering and the screams of pain he witnessed. And so we return to the day our protagonist faced his last great challenge. The enemy was the heavenly demon of the Northern Sword, one of the strongest warriors. The old man says he doubted the cult that wanted to unite the shattered demonic path. However, he admits the rumors were true, as they defeated the 10 strongest. Our hero, now panting, says the old man is the last opponent he needs to overcome, because if he can defeat him, he will finally get his long-awaited freedom. The heavenly demon then challenges him with a smile to see if he is capable of such a feat, and he lunges forward to attack, saying that if he wins, he will be the #1 sword of the cult. The clash between the two warriors creates an energy explosion that shakes the battlefield, but our protagonist manages to overcome the old man's technique with a powerful blow. The impact is so strong that the heavenly demon is thrown far away with no chance to defend. A large cloud of dust covers the area, and we hear a cough coming from within it. And when the dust settles, we see the old man on his knees on the ground, completely defeated. The heavenly demon admits, shocked, that he never imagined our hero was so strong. And with his last enemy defeated, Samajian was finally free from his long obligation. Our boy then sighs in relief for having survived yet another deadly battle. Looking at the sun, he feels that everything is finally over and his dark past is behind him. Back in the present, he tells Mr. Jang that he wouldn't even believe it if he told him the truth, so he just summarizes that he was sold to mercenaries and only now managed to return. Samajian then takes a drink and asks what matters most to him, where is his family? Mr. Jang reveals that his younger siblings left for a place called Suong. Our protagonist is surprised, as he didn't expect them to have left the village. The old man explains that it's been 6 years, and that they waited as long as they could bear. The next day, while walking through the village, Mr. Jang approaches with more news, and with a sad look, he prepares to give our hero the worst news of all. The man then reveals that our boy's mother passed away the previous year, leaving him in shock. Totally devastated by the news, Samajian goes to a mountain to be alone. There, he breaks down crying, saying he committed an unforgivable sin against his mother. Remembering his family, our hero feels guilty for not returning sooner for his mother. Then, after some time, he and his friend finally arrive in Sohung to find his siblings. They find the siblings' house, but the place looks very poor and abandoned. Our protagonist gets worried seeing the precarious situation they live in. His friend then jokes, asking if he's scared to go inside the house. He says it's strange because Samajian doesn't fear armies but seems nervous now. Our hero replies that this is different because he doesn't know how to face his siblings. He feels guilty for all the suffering they went through because of him. His friend encourages him, saying that together they can get a new and better house. With that, our protagonist musters his courage and knocks on the door, promising never to be separated from them again. Soon after, a voice from inside asks who's there in a frightened tone. The door then opens, and a young woman appears to see who the visitor is. Our protagonist is speechless, seeing how much his sister has grown and tries to introduce himself. Her eyes fill with surprise as she realizes who is in front of her. The girl is in total shock, unable to believe her brother has finally returned. However, as he holds her hand, he feels a strange energy and wonders what happened. The girl then gets scared and pushes our hero away forcefully to break free. She ends up falling to the ground, and our protagonist doesn't know what to do. He tries to apologize, but suddenly he hears someone shouting furiously at them. It was 2 young men running in their direction to see what was happening. Our hero and his friend just watch the two approach, not understanding the situation. The girl then calls one of them younger brother, leaving our protagonist confused. The young man rushes furiously towards our hero, telling him not to touch his sister. Our protagonist easily dodges the attack and deduces that he must be his brother Ho. The boy introduces himself as Guango from the Concordant Mind Association, ready for a fight. He then attacks with a series of blows, but our hero dodges them all effortlessly. Samajian holds the boy and wonders if he became a gangster while he was away. Guango is furious for being caught and pulls out a knife, threatening our protagonist. Our hero then easily grabs his brother's arm, stopping the attack. Suddenly, the other young man intervenes and tells Ho to stop that behavior. Our hero then realizes the other young man is his brother Hyan from the mention of their mother. Hyan scolds Ho for pulling out a knife without thinking and for joining a gang. While Hyan complains that he already told him to get out of it, our hero feels happy they are okay. He then closes his eyes and breathes a sigh of relief for finally reuniting with his siblings, safe and sound. However, taking advantage of Hyan's distraction, the young Ho sees an opening to attack again. and without a second thought, he lunges with the knife in hand towards our protagonist. However, before he can land the blow, a mysterious hand grabs his wrist forcefully. It was our hero's friend, who breaks the knife blade with his bare hand effortlessly. Ho is completely shocked by the man's strength and calls him a monster, not believing what he saw. The big guy then proudly introduces himself as the great Jungong Yacha. Still, Ho doesn't understand why someone so strong would be robbing their house. Our protagonist's friend gets furious for being called a thief right after being called a thug. Our protagonist then tries to calm the situation while his friend is still shouting in anger. He then tries to explain himself to his siblings, who still look at him with great suspicion. Suddenly, Ho is shocked as he remembers the Blood Axe sect. Our protagonist is confused by the mention of the Blood Axe sect. Suddenly, a group of thugs appears to interrupt the family reunion. The guys find the presence of our hero and his friend strange, as they've never seen them around. Then one of them approaches intimidatingly and asks who they are. The thug gets right up in our protagonist's face and repeats the question, even angrier this time. At the same time, another henchman goes to face our boy's giant friend. Ho then points at them and shouts that this is his association's territory. Our protagonist finally understands that these are the men from the Blood Axe clan. The leader of the thugs then grabs our hero and says they came to take over the place. Ho gets furious, as it seems they came to finish the job they started. The thug then tries to make a deal and tells our boy to cooperate with them. With an arrogant smile, the man prepares to start the mess. However, our protagonist simply slaps the guy, sending him flying. And with that single blow, he ends the thug's life in the blink of an eye. All the other henchmen are in total shock at our hero's absurd strength. The henchmen are stunned by his strength, but the new leader yells for everyone to attack together. However, our protagonist doesn't even move and just tells his friend Chiel Wu to finish them. Chiel Wu then gives an excited smile and accepts his captain's order. Thus, the thugs all charge at once towards the big guy, not knowing what they've gotten into. With a fierce look, Chiel Wu prepares to show them what real power is. And in the blink of an eye, he defeats all the enemies with absurd speed and strength. After wiping the floor with them, the big guy just says they were a bunch of nobodies. Looking at the figures on the ground, he wonders if he went a little overboard. Our hero's siblings are dumbfounded because those thugs were hired by them. Chiel Wu then turns to them and asks if they still think they're on the same side. Our protagonist then says they are not thugs and calls his siblings by their names. He then shows the scar on his forehead and asks if they don't recognize him. Upon seeing the mark, his siblings finally realize and ask if it's really him. With a gentle smile on his face, our hero confirms that he has finally returned. Hyan then runs to hug his older brother, crying, and Samajian apologizes for the delay. Ho then asks what happened and where he has been all this time. Later, inside the house, everyone gathers to talk and catch up. Chiel Wu gets along with Ho and says he likes the boy's attitude. Ho, curious, then asks why Chiel Wu calls our hero captain. The big guy explains that he got beat up when he challenged him and that our hero saved his life. Our protagonist then says that's a lie and that Chiel Wu just doesn't like calling him brother. He then asks how they have all been during his absence. Hyan says he's working as an escort at the Pearl Sea Agency. Our hero is surprised, as he didn't expect his brother to follow in his footsteps. Sister Gina then says she's learning with trade with General Manager Yuke. Our protagonist imagines their mother must have been against this decision. Hyan confirms that she was much more against it than he imagines. And Ho adds that it's obvious, because it was because of that job that our hero disappeared. Hyan then scolds Ho, saying he has no room to talk. And he adds that they don't need the dirty money Ho earns by exploiting the weak. Ho then defends himself, saying he doesn't exploit anyone and that they don't do that kind of thing. Suddenly, Sister Gina slams the table hard, interrupting the two's argument. She scolds them, saying their older brother is back after 12 years and all they do is fight. In the middle of the scolding, the girl starts coughing and spitting up blood, frightening everyone. Our protagonist rushes to help her while her brothers shout her name, worried. Upon touching her, our hero feels the same strong yin energy as before and wonders what happened. Ho is shocked and asks how he knows about the yin energy in her body. Our protagonist then asks if they have taken her to a doctor and what the diagnosis was. Hyan explains that they sought out every doctor in the region, but none knew what it was. He says only one doctor said the same thing as our hero about the yin energy. Gina then says she's fine and that the pain is bearable, trying to calm everyone down. After a while, she gets up and goes to her room to rest a bit. Hyan then reveals they moved to Sohyung because of this doctor who could help, and Ho adds that she's only holding on because of a medicine he prescribed. Our protagonist then gets serious and asks if there is any cure for the illness. Hyan explains there is no cure, but the doctor said they can alleviate the symptoms with a lot of money. He says the current medicine is already not cheap, and that he can't afford it on his salary. Crying, he admits that without Ho's money, they wouldn't stand a chance and that he has no right to criticize him. With his siblings shaken, our hero stands up to comfort his family. He then places a hand on Hyen's shoulder, showing his support and comfort in that difficult moment. Sama Jian hugs them both and says he has the least right to speak, as he just got back. Next, our hero tells them not to worry about money, because he will handle everything. Hyen thanks him relieved, and tells his older brother to get some rest, as he must be tired. Soon after, Hyen leaves the room, leaving our protagonist alone with his friend. Now alone with Cheol Woo, our protagonist seems thoughtful about his family's situation. Cheol Woo pours a drink and says if he had known about the situation, he would have brought something with them. Our protagonist then asks what he wanted to bring and if it was the money from the thugs. The big guy confirms they had a fortune, but his captain told him to leave it all behind. Sama Jian explains that the money belonged to the victims and should be returned to their families. He also says he didn't even want to touch that dirty money, and Cheol Woo says the decision is the captain's. Cheol Woo then remembers the item they got from the demonic Buddha temple to sell. He then changes the subject and asks how his sister is doing, as our hero examined her. Our protagonist explains that her energy balance is broken and the yin energy is too strong. Cheol Woo suggests injecting yang energy into her, which would be easy with the captain's power. However, our hero says he tried, but it didn't work because there's no path for the energy to enter. Cheol Woo is confused and asks what that means, not understanding the gravity of the situation. Our protagonist then reveals the terrible truth: if they do nothing, Gina will pass away soon. The next day, they all go together to the clinic of the famous doctor in town. The group joins the crowd waiting to be seen by the renowned doctor. The line is huge, and they realize they arrived too late to get an appointment. Our hero comments that the doctor must be as good as they say to attract so many people. Ho agrees and says he's incredibly famous throughout the region but asks them to wait a bit. He then goes to the front of the line with a smile on his face to try something. And with great confidence, Ho greets the men guarding the entrance. Hyen then explains that they are from the Concordant Mind Association and extort money from merchants. Ho explains that they act as local security but are very humble with him. Cheol Woo then asks if they weren't the pillars of the area, as Ho had said. The big guy laughs and says everyone has to start somewhere. Ho then gets everyone's attention and says they've talked enough and it's time to go in. Cheol Woo is impressed with the boy's confidence and says he's quite reliable. And so, the whole group enters the clinic, which looks more like a large hospital. Our protagonist observes that there are many doctors there, not just patients waiting. Hyen says he has traveled a lot but has never seen such a large clinic, not even outside of Sohong. Our hero then finds out that the place grew so much because of a doctor named Sosoma. Cheol Woo comments that he definitely doesn't seem like a quack to be so successful. Our protagonist becomes thoughtful, because not even such a good doctor could cure his sister. Suddenly, one of the attendants recognizes Ho and says he arrived early for his appointment. Ho explains that the situation has changed and asks him to inform the doctor that they are there. The attendant then asks them to wait a bit and goes to call his master. And so, the group enters a room to await the arrival of the famous Dr. Sosoma. The doctor then enters the room with a smile and says he was surprised by their arrival. He asks if Gina's condition has worsened, but Ho says that fortunately, that's not the case. The boy then explains that his older brother wanted to meet him, which is why they came early. Our protagonist introduces himself as Sama Jian, and the doctor says he didn't know there was an older brother. Our hero has a good impression of the doctor, as he seems very humble and polite. However, he notices that the doctor knows martial arts, which makes him suspicious. Cheol Woo also notices the doctor's skill and says he's pretty good for a doctor. Our protagonist agrees, as he definitely has some hidden ability. Sama Jian then explains that he was away and came back to help his sick sister. The doctor is happy about his return but says he's not exactly treating the illness. He then begins to check Gina's pulse to verify her condition. Everyone watches intently as the doctor performs his analysis with great concentration. The doctor then says that her illness has always weighed on his heart because it reminds him of his limitations. Hyen thanks him, saying that thanks to him, his sister can lead an almost normal life. But the doctor humbly says that all he did was slow the progression of the illness. Our hero then understands that the worst-case scenario is his sister Gina's life is at risk. The doctor then says that high-quality herbs could be more effective for the treatment, because if the current herbs already help a little, better ones could have a superior result. Our protagonist then asks what kind of herbs they need for the treatment. The doctor explains that he uses herbs with strong yang energy to neutralize her yin energy, and he reveals that the main ingredient for the medicine is the fire spirit herb. The best of all would be the 1,000-year-old herb, but it's almost impossible to obtain. Our boy asks if the clinic has it, but the doctor denies it, saying it's a legendary elixir. They then understand that for martial artists, this is a treasure worth fighting for. Even so, our hero asks with determination where he can find this rare item. The doctor then gives a clue and asks if he's heard of the Suryong merchant group. Hyan knows the name, and the doctor confirms that it's one of the largest merchant groups in the area. He says he was once called to treat the group president's son for malaria. And to his surprise, the president showed him an ingredient that could help with the treatment. Samajian asks if he used the item, and the doctor says he obviously did not. The doctor explains that it would be a waste to use something so rare to treat simple malaria. He then says the president jokingly offered him the item when he refused. Our protagonist then gets serious and asks what the price of the rare ingredient was. The doctor reveals that the president said he would sell it for 300 taels of gold. Our hero's siblings are dumbfounded, as this is an absurd amount of money. Sister Gina is saddened because she knows they could never raise that much money. Hyan is devastated, as a single tael of gold already pays for half a year of their medicine. Cheol then asks if they can't get a discount, but our hero says no. The big guy then says that with the money they have, they can't even come close. The siblings are confused and ask what they could sell to get so much money. Cheol then starts talking about the item from the demonic Buddha, but our hero cuts him off. He then changes the subject and talks about something he found when he was working as a mercenary. It was a shiny stone he found that was worth a real fortune. The siblings are shocked to learn that the stone was valued at 400 taels. Gina then starts to cry with happiness because now she has a chance to be cured. Our protagonist then comforts his sister and promises he will find a way to get the medicine. He then turns to the doctor and asks him to arrange a meeting with the group's president. The doctor is happy to help and says he will contact them immediately, and so, our hero and his friend go to the headquarters of the Suryong merchant group. Inside the office, they are received by the president, who seems anything but friendly. And without beating around the bush, the man says directly and rudely that he will not sell the item. Our protagonist is surprised and asks what he just said, not believing the answer. The president then repeats arrogantly that he will not sell the item to them, and with a sarcastic smile he asks if they got the message. The scene then returns to the same office, where the president awaits them. Now our hero and his friend are in a meeting with the group's president. Our protagonist then calmly asks why he doesn't want to sell the item. The president then shows the shiny stone and says its value doesn't cover the cost. Our hero remains silent, observing the man's greedy attitude. The president then says he has a good eye for these things and knows the stone's real value. Our hero then confirms that the stone is a high-quality knight, shining pearl. The president just stares at him with contempt, without saying a single word. He then reveals that he never intended to sell the item to anyone. The man asks if our protagonist didn't hear the reason he showed him the item. Our hero then says he knows it was to treat his son's chronic malaria. Cheol, who explains that the blue stone oil is a legendary elixir capable of reviving the fallen. The president then says that if the news spreads, they will become targets for everyone. That's why he kept the item a secret, as an emergency reserve for the family. Our protagonist understands the situation and says the doctor wouldn't break a promise lightly. The president then deduces that the critically ill patient is our hero's sister. Our boy gets a serious and determined look, as he will do anything for his family. The man then says that now that the secret is out, he needs to get rid of the item. But with a greedy smile, he says he can't just hand over such a precious elixir easily. And with his gold teeth showing, he raises the price to 500 taels. Our protagonist is furious with the man's greed but tries to remain calm. The president says the pearl is top quality but tries to downplay its value. He says it's small, and it would be hard to get 400 taels for it. Our protagonist then retorts that at most, it's worth about 300 taels. The man then adds a fine of 100 taels for the breach of secrecy, and another 100 for the high demand. Cheol Wu explodes with anger and calls the old man a scammer, saying he's crossed the line. The big guy threatens to blow up the whole place if the president continues with this nonsense. Our hero then calms him down and asks why he always wants to solve everything with his fists. He then asks the president how much money they currently have for the negotiation. Cheol Wu says they have about 120 taels, but our hero rounds it down to 100. Our protagonist then asks the president what kind of men they seem to be to him. The man says our hero has the dignity of someone who has been through a bloodbath. Our boy then reveals that they walk the path of the demonic cult against their will. He says he has taken more lives than he can count, and that he made a promise to himself. The promise was to leave that bloody life behind and live in peace with his family. But now, with his family member's life on the line, he can't afford to keep that promise. The president remains silent, analyzing the situation and our hero's sincerity. He then realizes that our protagonist is not lying, as he has risked everything for his family, and so, he accepts the proposal but, in return, asks for a favor in the future. Our protagonist accepts the deal without hesitation, as he will do anything to save his sister. The scene then changes to a campfire in the middle of the night in a forest. Now our hero and his friend Cheol Wu are camping after a long day. The big guy complains about the thugs and says he would have finished them if it weren't for the boss. Our protagonist then apologizes, as he spent the money they had in common. Cheel, who says it doesn't matter whose money it was, as it was to save a life. He then says he got angry because they were taking advantage of a desperate situation. The big guy even suggests going back and taking the item by force, but our hero stops him. Our protagonist tells him not to talk nonsense and stain the medicine with more blood. Cheel, who then agrees with a thoughtful look as he sharpens his knife. Our hero then reflects that everything they did was to survive, as they were kidnapped. But he admits that his hands are still stained with innocent blood. He then says that now that they have escaped, they need to abandon their old habits to fit into society. Because the world out there has its own rules, and they need to play by them. Our hero then remembers that things worked out because of the 100 taels he saved. His plan is to save Gina, find an honest job, and build a normal life with his family. Cheel, who then takes a drink and says he is free to leave whenever he wants. But the big guy apologizes and says he got carried away because they sacrificed so much to get out of that nightmare. He can't just leave, especially when he thinks about his comrades who fell. Our protagonist then asks what kind of memories the situation is bringing up for him. Cheel, who remembers the stone oil our hero took from the Gwimin clan and gave to him. Our boy then jokes that he barely had enough for his size. The big guy laughs and says that thanks to it, he perfected his diamond body technique. Suddenly, he says he can smell the scent of blood from some guys nearby. He then gets serious and wonders what their deal is. As they are getting closer, our hero says he has a bad feeling, but there's only one way to find out. And so, the two prepare for whatever is coming their way in the forest. Suddenly, a group of masked horsemen appears in the forest, riding at high speed. And in a short time, they surround our hero and his friend, ready to attack. The men have an intimidating appearance and seem to be after something. Our protagonist sighs and realizes his journey will be anything but peaceful. The thugs mock them, saying that for a bunch of beggars, they move pretty fast. One of them then suggests starting the attack by taking off their legs. Our hero then calmly asks if they have been following them this whole time. The group's leader then tells them to hand over their goods for a quick end. If they refuse, they will make the two suffer the agonies of the underworld, unable to live or pass on. Our protagonist and his friend are confused and ask what goods they're talking about. The man then reveals that they want the item the two got from the Suryong merchant group. Our hero realizes the president didn't keep the deal and that you can't trust anyone. He then says he has seen enough blood and tells the thugs to leave. But the group's leader says they're not kidding and that they know about the stone oil. And he even says their boss was worried the old man had already drunk the elixir. The thug then says it's better for them to hand over the item for a peaceful end. Cheel Woo is not intimidated and asks who they are to be so confident. The henchmen laugh and say it doesn't hurt to tell them since they're already done for. Our protagonist and his friend just watch the thug's arrogance with a smile. They then reveal themselves as the elite of the 1,000 Assassins gang, which rules the Knights of Hangzhou. The group's leader then tells them to shut up and get ready for action. He gives our hero and his friend 3 seconds to choose between a quick end or torture. Cheel Woo then makes a mocking gesture and asks if the leader can't be a pig instead. The man is shocked by the big guy's audacity and doesn't get the joke. Furious, he yells at his men to attack the two without mercy. The leader then says they want a taste of the underworld and tells his henchmen to give it to them. And so, all the thugs surround our hero and his friend, ready for battle. Cheel Woo then comments that they have nothing worth losing their lives over. Our protagonist sighs and says there's no choice, as he already warned them. The big guy then cracks his knuckles and says he can feel they've already taken a few lives. The leader of the thugs gets angry at the audacity and threatens to take our hero's eyes and tongue. Then the henchmen all charge at the two at once, ready for a fight. Cheel Woo is not intimidated and challenges them to come at him with a confident smile. Suddenly, he says to wait a second and turns to his captain. Our protagonist then asks what he wants, not understanding the interruption. The big guy's eyes widen as he realizes something strange in the forest. And so, a new group of 3 people appears among the trees, observing the scene. Cheel Woo gets frustrated because the situation just got even more complicated. Now all the groups face each other in the middle of the forest, not knowing what will happen. The woman in the new group comments that it seems they've found some unlucky merchants. She then turns to our protagonist and asks if they need help. Our hero is suspicious, as it's strange for someone to offer help to a total stranger. The young woman then says the thugs are members of the local Hangzhou underworld. Cheel Woo realizes the newcomers have high-level skills. But our protagonist says the real expert is the woman and asks his friend to handle it. Our protagonist then turns to the woman and politely asks for a hand in the fight. As soon as he asks for help, the thugs turn to the new group and prepare to attack everyone. The woman gets furious, and her guards realize the thugs plan to attack them too. She then threatens them, telling them to back off now or face the consequences of their actions. The leader of the thugs realizes they are guards, but his only focus is getting the elixir. The leader of the thugs gets angry at the woman's audacity and orders his men to finish everyone there. And so, the henchmen all charge at once towards one of the woman's guards. However, the guard isn't fazed and calls the guys worms as he slowly draws his sword. Suddenly, he throws the sheath of his sword into the air, confusing the enemies. Taking the chance, the thugs surround him, ready to cut him to pieces. But with a single circular motion, the guard hits all the henchmen at once. Then the sheath he threw falls and hits one of the men, finishing the job. And so, the guard stands amidst the bodies of all the men he defeated alone. One of the survivors, still on the ground, shouts for his boss, completely shocked by the scene. The swordsman then turns around, revealing some strange marks on his face. Our protagonist and Cheel will watch the fight and admit the guy is not bad at all. Seeing that all his men have been defeated, the leader of the thugs panics, so he decides to flee as quickly as possible and jumps towards his horse. However, the woman's other guard intercepts the leader in midair, preventing his escape. The guard passes him without any difficulty, showing that he is also very skilled. The guard then says the leader could have lived if he had accepted his lady's mercy. But the thug gets desperate and goes on the attack, cursing the man. However, his attack is easily defended by the guard, who finds him impressive. The leader shouts in a last-ditch effort to turn the tables in his favor. However, the guard dodges effortlessly and counterattacks with a swift blow. And with a single cut, he hits the man's back, ending the fight. The leader then falls to the ground, completely defeated and with no chance to fight back. His partner approaches and asks why he took so long to finish the guy. The man then explains that the boss was actually pretty good for a nobody like him. He adds that the others surrendered as soon as they saw their comrades fall. The swordsman wanted to finish them all, but their lady told them to let them live. Our protagonist then approaches and politely thanks them for saving their lives. Soon after, the woman appears and says it was a pleasure to help, as it was the right thing to do. Our hero wanted to introduce himself but says that unfortunately, they are in a hurry. She then tells them not to worry and to go, as they will take care of the remaining thugs. Before leaving, our hero introduces himself as Samajian and promises to return the favor one day. His friend Cheel, who then teases him for being corny, but our protagonist tells him to shut up. One of the guards finds the duo strange and complains that they should have cleaned up their own mess. However, the young woman says it's no problem, as she herself agreed to let them go. Suddenly, her eyes widen as she realizes something very strange about the two. Her guards are confused by her reaction and ask what happened. The woman then reveals that those two men showed no fear of the situation. Her companions don't understand, and she explains that they didn't have a shred of fear, because even with all those bodies and blood, they were not shaken at all. She adds that they acted with indifference as if they were watching a show. The scene then returns to the clinic, where our hero finally arrives with the medicine. He enters the office, which is filled with herbs and other medicinal ingredients. Our boy then looks around, seeming to be looking for someone important. Soon after, one of the attendants appears and eagerly asks if he managed to get the item. Our protagonist confirms that he fortunately managed to get the item and takes it out of a bag. The attendant feels bad for not going with him, but our hero says the tip alone was a great help. He then asks about our protagonist's sister, who is not with him at the moment. Sama Jian explains that he sent her to get their younger brother, and that they will arrive soon. The attendant gets a bit tense upon hearing this, and our hero notices the reaction. In his mind, our boy wonders if he was impatient and if the doctor has something urgent. So he apologizes for the rush, but the attendant says he misunderstood. And then he reveals that the real reason he didn't go is that he has visitors from his main family. Our protagonist is confused and asks what he means by main family. The attendant seems a bit nervous but decides to tell him the truth, and he asks if our hero has ever heard of the medical house of the living immortal. Samajian is shocked, as it's a famous medical clan said to even bring people back from the brink. He praises the doctor, but the man humbly says he only managed to keep the illness stable. The doctor says that because it's a rare case, he asked his family for help several times. However, due to some plagues in the central region, they couldn't send anyone. Our protagonist then asks excitedly if a doctor from the main family has finally arrived. The doctor then confirms that a doctor from the main family is on their way to help. He adds that the person is one of the best in the clan, and that his own skills are just a hobby. Our hero bows, thanking him profusely, as he doesn't know how to repay such kindness. The doctor says he will return as soon as possible but cannot give an exact date. Samajian says it's no problem, and that he can wait as long as it takes for his sister's cure. However, the doctor's expression changes, and he seems to be hiding something. Our protagonist notices the change and asks if there is some kind of problem. The doctor is embarrassed, as he doesn't have the heart to tell our hero the truth. Samajian then decides to leave and says he will get in touch later so as not to disturb them. Later, we see the family gathered in front of the house for a peaceful meal. Sister Gina and brother Hyan serve the food to our hero in a moment of peace. Suddenly, Hyan asks his sister Gina where she is going at that moment. And he answers that she is on her way to a city called Wuxi to take care of something. Our protagonist comments that this place is quite far from where they are now. Hyan then says that if nothing special happens, the trip will take about 15 days. Our protagonist becomes thoughtful after hearing about his sister's trip. He then decides to have a serious talk with Hyan about his job as a porter. Hyan replies that he doesn't have much choice and needs to continue with the service. But our hero warns him that the job is dangerous, as he himself disappeared for 12 years. The younger brother defends himself, saying it's been 5 years and the pay is good. Sama Jion then offers the money he saved so that Hyan can stop working. However, Hyan is surprised and asks if he didn't spend it all on the medicine. Our protagonist looks embarrassed while Cheol, Woo and Ho shrink in the background. Cheol, Woo explains that the boy was asking a lot of questions about the money. Hyan questions his brother and says that even with money, he wouldn't know what to do with his life. Our hero then suggests they could buy some land and start farming. The idea of becoming a farmer or starting a business sparks a small argument between them. Cheol, Woo then chimes in and says he supports the business idea because he can help with the location. Ho doubts the big guy's power, but Cheol, Woo insists he has some influence. Hyan then calms everyone down, saying there's no rush and the focus now is on Gina. Hyan then suggests they work together, but Cheol, Woo says he prefers being an escort. However, our protagonist becomes thoughtful because he doesn't want to go back to that kind of life. His sister Gina then asks Hyan not to rush and to think carefully about the decision. Sama Jian agrees that he was hasty and also asks his brother to reflect on the matter. With a smile, Hyan accepts the advice and promises to think seriously about everything. With the matter settled, our hero tells everyone to eat and enjoy the meal together. Sometime later, the scene changes to a bustling city full of people and merchants. Our protagonist and Cheol, Woo are walking there, and the big guy complains that he's tired. So he suggests they take a short break, and our boy agrees immediately. They then decide to eat some dumplings and head towards a nearby food stall. Cheol, Woo orders 2 plates and a drink, but the owner says they don't sell alcohol there. The big guy gets a little annoyed by the news but just asks them to bring the food. Once seated, he asks what they will do, as there seems to be no work for them around there. Our hero admits it's hard to find an honest job after living by the sword for so long. Cheol, Woo then asks if he really wants to start a business, asking for Ho's help. Cheol, Woo then says he should give his family a chance to be proud of him. But our hero says no, and that he will first get Ho out of the gang and won't ask for favors. Besides, he jokes that Cheol, Woo doesn't have the personality to run a business. The big guy laughs and agrees that his friend is absolutely right about that. Just then, the stall owner arrives with the food, and they decide to eat first. The dumplings look very appetizing and are steaming hot. Cheol, Woo tries one and is impressed, as the flavor is really good. Our protagonist agrees that they are much better than the ones they ate before. He then asks the owner if the meat is pork, and the man confirms it is. Sama Jian becomes thoughtful, wondering why there's such a difference in flavor. The vendor then proudly says that his shop only uses the highest quality meat. The two wonder if the secret is the cut of the meat, since all pork should be the same. However, the man reveals that the secret is actually the person who butchered the animal. And he explains that the method may be the same, but the butcher's skill is different. Cheol, Woo doesn't get it, but suddenly our hero yells for him to watch out. Suddenly, our hero spots something coming at high speed towards them. It was a giant pig running wild, but Cheol, Woo hits it with a precise punch. The impact is so strong that the animal is knocked out instantly, collapsing to the ground. With the situation resolved, our protagonist asks if his friend is okay, and he says thanks. Cheol, Woo then wonders where on earth that pig came from out of nowhere in the middle of the street. Soon after, a group of men appears running, and they seem to be the animal's owners. They arrive breathless and worriedly ask if the big guy was hurt in the accident. Cheol, Woo then jokes that he's fine, but their pig wasn't so lucky. And he adds that since it was their fault, they don't need to pay any compensation. The men fall to their knees on the ground, completely terrified by the big guy's strength. Suddenly, an old man appears and yells at them, calling them a bunch of useless fools. He scolds the guys who bow and apologize to their master. Cheol, Woo then steps in and says they should apologize to the person who was almost attacked. Without a second thought, the men turn and apologize to our hero and his friend. The old man then apologizes and explains that they are candidates who let the pig escape. Our protagonist is curious about the term candidates and asks what the old man means. The man then explains that he's looking for a successor, and those guys applied for the position. Sama Jian then connects the dots and asks if he was the one who butchered the pig for the dumplings. With a serious look, the old butcher confirms that he was indeed the one responsible. So our hero politely asks if they can take a look at the butcher shop. The man is a bit suspicious, as it's not a very pleasant scene to watch. But our protagonist insists, saying it's also not something you see every day. The old man then stares at our boy, seemingly analyzing his true intentions. And finally, he agrees and tells them to do as they wish and leads them to the place. The scene then changes to the village, showing the way to the old man's famous butcher shop. Inside, the master observes the unconscious pig and his apprentices with disapproval. He then complains that one of the guys is useless because the customer had to capture the pig. Next, the old man asks the candidates why they think the capture failed. The men reply that the aim was off or that the hammer slipped. The master then says they are right, but that everything was wrong from the start. The old man then explains that the priority is to make the animal not realize what's about to happen. However, the apprentices doubt him and say a pig wouldn't know anything. The master doesn't even respond, as he knows they are still too ignorant on the subject. Meanwhile, the pig continues to eat its food calmly, suspecting nothing. Next, the old man kneels beside the animal and tells everyone to watch closely. And so, he positions the stake on the animal's head, which doesn't react at all. The candidates are dumbfounded because before, the pig went crazy just seeing the tool. The master then reveals that the animal felt no killing intent from him, and he adds that nothing reacts more sensitively to this intent than animals. To prove his point, the old man releases a bit of his intent just with his gaze. Instantly, the pig gets scared and starts grunting in fear, sensing the threat in the air. Cheol Woo is stunned by the man's control, who released and hid the intent in seconds. He asks if the old man is a master, but our hero says he doesn't fight but is impressive. The butcher then says that only when you can hide your intent are you truly ready. Our protagonist and his friend watch, completely shocked by the demonstration. The apprentices are left open, mouthed by the master's skill and precision. The old man then explains that the most important thing is to finish it all in a single blow. Cheol Woo is impressed because the pig didn't even have time to squeal before it fell. The master then scolds his men and says the real work starts now. He then tells the guys to hurry up and drain the animal's blood. Cheol Woo jokes about the old man's voice and asks if all that shouting is necessary. A man sweeping the place explains that he has no children and is looking for an heir. Cheol Woo then questions why he cares so much about a simple butcher shop, but our hero says it's understandable, as he dedicated his whole life to the business. The big guy isn't convinced but admits the master's skill is incredible. Our protagonist then remembers that the old man's physique is as impressive as his voice. He then jokes that Cheol Woo was accepted by a master for being as big as he is. Suddenly, our hero gets serious and says they are going to take over the butcher shop. Cheol Woo is shocked and asks if he's serious about this decision. Samajeon explains that there's no work for them and that he wants a job he can be proud of. With his decision made, our protagonist goes to the old butcher to apply. And so, he says with confidence that they would also like to apply for the position. The master laughs, thinking they believe the job is easy after seeing him in action. He then turns to the other customers and asks them to return to their homes. But our hero praises him, saying he would never think such a thing after seeing his technique. Samajeon adds that the blow was so precise it looked like the one strike, one kill technique. The old man is impressed by our boy's knowledge and looks at him more carefully. He then asks our protagonist to wait a moment and takes him to a pig pen. Inside, the master guides a pig to the center of the area for the test. Our hero stands waiting to see what challenge the old man will propose. The butcher then says that to take over the business, one must know how to do the slaughtering. Our protagonist admits he has never done it before but is willing to try, and so, he kneels in front of the pig, ready to show his skills. With the stake in hand, he positions it precisely in the center of the animal's head. The old man watches closely, impressed by our boy's posture and calmness. The old man is stunned because our hero easily did something that took him a lifetime to master. So he asks suspiciously if our boy has really never learned to do that. But Samajeon replies that he just followed what the master did moments before. As soon as he finishes the job, our hero shouts for Cheol Woo to hurry up and hang the animal. The big guy then prepares for the work as he looks at the pig on the ground. Suddenly, the master's eyes widen again, completely shocked by the scene. Because Cheol Woo lifts the pig by himself, something that usually requires 4 men. He then hangs the animal but asks if they really need to use those tools. The old butcher is confused by the question and doesn't understand what he means. Cheol Woo then simply turns and starts walking away, leaving everyone confused. Our protagonist and the master just watch, not understanding what on earth he is doing. Suddenly, the big guy returns and startles the old man, who wasn't expecting it. Now he holds the pig with just one arm and says they need to finish the job quickly. The master is dumbfounded, realizing that these two are not ordinary people. And finally he asks if they are martial artists, and our hero confirms they once were. The master then asks why martial artists would want to do this kind of work. With a determined look, our hero replies that they just want to try living normally. The old man says they could find another job, but our boy explains it hasn't been easy. The butcher then realizes that these young men have not had a very peaceful life, And so, he lets out a long sigh, seeming to feel sorry for the two boys' situation. Samajian then bows and asks the old man to teach them, as there isn't much time left. With a confident smile on his face, our hero promises that he won't be disappointed. The scene then changes to the roof of a house with a cat watching from afar. Suddenly, a calligraphy brush snaps, showing the anger of someone important. We see a man with an unfriendly face asking about the Healing Sun Medical House. His subordinate then explains that a member of the imperial family of Hangzhou is very ill. Chief Yalno, Zheng gets annoyed because the doctors there clashed with the Gaidungs. The man named Dang Bake reveals they were after the stalactite essence. Yalngo Zheng is shocked and furious to discover the real reason for the fight. Another man in the room slams the table in anger for wasting such a valuable item. However, Dang Bake reveals that the item was not used and that the owner is someone else. The big boss is surprised and asks if the item doesn't belong to the Healing Sun Medical House. The henchman then explains that the Gaidungs were after this person and ran into the doctors. Impatient, the man asks who on earth owns this so-called stalactite essence. Dang Bake then reveals it's a man named Samajian from Shoxing. The chief gives a smile and says he didn't know the greedy old man from the Union had this item. He then realizes this is the perfect chance to cure a brat from his clan, and angrily, he orders them to bring the item or capture the brother who drank it. The scene then returns to the butcher shop, where Brother Hyan cuts meat with great skill. The old master laughs, as he is truly impressed by the young man's talent. He then says his progress is incredible and there's nothing left to teach him. Hyan humbly thanks him and says it's all thanks to the master's good instructions. The old man says he is the one who is grateful for having dedicated his whole life to his craft. He gets a distant look, as he had hoped his art would be preserved forever. And finally, he thanks Hyan, saying his wish has been fulfilled and he can now rest in peace. Hyan says that thanks to the master, he managed to establish himself, and he is the one who should be grateful. Meanwhile, Chiel, Wu carries a pig carcass, complaining they could just cut and sell it. He throws the animal into a barrel and asks the boss if he also needs to learn the art. But the old master quickly warns them not to give the big guy a knife and just leave him on general duties. Hyan then says his friend's skill for slaughtering is more than enough. Chiel, Wu gets all proud and comments that the old man finally said something that makes sense. Later, the three take a break to have a drink and celebrate the good work. The big guy then says that knives aren't his thing, and that's fine by him. Hyan just tells him to do whatever he wants, and Chiel, Wu thanks him, happy with the decision. Next, the brute offers a drink to the master who seems to be leaving. However, Hyan slaps him for his lack of manners and for being so direct with the old man. Chiel, Wu insists, saying a little drink before leaving won't hurt anyone. The master then gets excited and says he can't go a day without a drink and tells them to fill his cup. Hyan is shocked by the old man's reaction, who seemed very serious until now. From a distance, our protagonist watches the mess and thinks about how his brother stirred things up. Suddenly, his sister Gina appears at the butcher shop door and asks when he arrived. Samajian scolds her, telling her not to exert herself as her health is fragile. He then asks what she's doing there, and the girl says she heard her brother took over the business. Gina tries to help with cleaning, but our protagonist tells her to stop, as it's good enough. He then asks if the business is doing well, and she places a package on the table. The young woman explains that not yet, as it's only been a few days since the old owner left and they opened. And she adds that the old man passed away peacefully the same night her brother took over the shop. Just then, Hyan arrives with a tray of meat and worriedly asks when his brother got back. Samajian says he just arrived and that everything is fine, as the trip was quick. Hyan boasts that his escort mission was as fast as lightning to show off. Our hero admits he never imagined he would take over a butcher shop, but doesn't dislike the idea. Samajian wonders if they can handle it, as the place is very famous in the region. He also warns that if their skills aren't good, the business could even fail. However, Hyan tells him not to worry, as he is confident and they will work hard together. Suddenly, the younger brother Ho appears running and shouting for his brothers. Hyan gets scared and worriedly asks what happened to cause such a commotion. Ho runs in desperately and shouts that they have finally arrived in the city. Chiel Wu then grabs the boy by the ear, scolding him for his behavior. The big guy tells him to stop shouting and explain properly what is happening. Ho complains about the violence, and Chiel Wu threatens him, saying he'll show him what real violence is. The boy gets scared and says he's heard that threat before and doesn't want to hear it again. With his ear free, he finally says that he found the doctor who came from the clinic. And he adds that the doctor has arrived in Hangzhou and sent for Gina for her treatment. Without a second thought, Hyan says they will go right now and takes off his apron. And so, the scene changes to the clinic, where they arrive for the long-awaited appointment. The attendant greets them with a smile and says he was waiting for them. Our protagonist apologizes for the rush but explains they came as soon as they got the message. The young man says it's no problem, as the doctor also wanted to see the patient as soon as possible. He then leads them to a room and introduces the woman named Wang Yang to the group. Our hero is dumbfounded, as this was the same woman he met in the forest. With a smile, the woman says it's a great coincidence for them to meet again there. Her guards agree, and one of them says he now understands why they were attacked. The attendant is confused and asks if they already knew each other from somewhere. Our hero then explains that they received help from her when they went to get the stone oil. The young man is surprised and comments on how fate works in very mysterious ways. Samajian then apologizes for leaving in a hurry and thanks her again for the help. But the woman says it's no problem, as he was busy with his sick sister. Our protagonist then introduces his sister Gina to the doctor who will examine her. The girl introduces herself as Samajina and says she is looking forward to her help. The doctor praises her, saying she looks like a fairy and that their cooperation should be mutual. And she adds that an illness can only be overcome when the patient and doctor fight together. She then asks everyone to leave for a moment so she can examine Gina. Half an hour later, our hero and his friends wait anxiously outside the room. Chiel Wu wonders why it's taking so long, but our protagonist remains silent. Suddenly, the door opens, and the doctor appears to give the results of the examination. Our protagonist then asks anxiously about his sister Gina's condition. The doctor says she believes she has identified the illness, and our hero asks her to tell them. And so, she reveals that the girl was born with the divine heavenly yin veins. Before she could treat a patient with the same symptoms, she had to leave. If it weren't for her family's records, she would have never identified the condition. Everyone gets tense and Chiel Wu asks if the illness has any kind of cure. The doctor says that according to the records, her family's acupuncture has some effect. Our protagonist then asks if the patient from the records managed to survive. The woman is speechless and doesn't know how to answer our hero's question. Outside, our boy meditates while his friends wait anxiously for the result. Ho is very nervous and Chiel Wu says not even 10 minutes have passed yet. Our protagonist remains silent, seemingly prepared for the worst-case scenario. His eyes open slowly, as he already knows what the doctor's answer will be. The woman then comes out of the room and says with a serious look that the treatment failed. Our hero then says with a sad look that the treatment didn't work out in the end. The doctor then confirms that the treatment failed, and our hero asks why it happened. She explains that the other patient was already very sick and that her yin energy was stronger. That's why her illness is considered much more critical than it appears. The attendant is shocked, as those with broken meridians don't live past 18. The woman then reveals that the other patient only lived to 21 because of the stone oil. Our protagonist is devastated to learn that she didn't survive even with the elixir. However, the doctor says that if acupuncture had been used along with the oil, the result would have been different. Samajian then asks her to take good care of his sister, as she is very precious to him. The woman remains silent, seemingly understanding the weight of the responsibility she has taken on. Outside, our hero meditates but can't shake the feeling of unease. In his mind, he wonders what he will do if something goes wrong with his sister. Suddenly, Ho starts to cough and Chiel Wu wakes him up, saying 2 hours have passed. The boy wakes up startled and sees an acupuncture needle flying in his direction. Chiel Wu asks what happened, but our hero simply answers with a highs. And with a serious look, he adds that an unwanted guest has appeared. And so, our hero and his friend Chiel Wu go outside the clinic. Suddenly, a dense fog covers the bamboo forest around the place. And amidst the fog, a group of masked men appears, jumping between the trees. One of them asks where the central guards are and says they need to hurry. The group's leader then reveals that their main objective is the blue stone oil. He orders the leader of Squad 3 and his men to surround the front gate. With a gesture of respect, the man confirms he understood the order and prepares. And so, all the men advance together to carry out the mission they were given. However, Chiel Wu appears in their path and calls them a bunch of rats. The men are startled by the big guy's presence and stop instantly. Without wasting time, Chiel Wu goes on the attack and hits one of them with a powerful blow. The leader of the invaders is surprised by the strength of the man, who appeared out of nowhere, and he asks who on earth they are, but Chiel Wu says that's his line. He then mocks them, saying the guys look like a bunch of idiots all dressed alike. The leader then realizes that Chiel Wu is an incredible master for causing so much damage. However, he quickly dismisses the idea, as the man doesn't look like the so-called Samajian. So he orders his men to take care of the big guy while he goes after the target, and with a powerful leap, he jumps far away, leaving his men behind. Chiel Wu is surprised by the speed of the man who disappeared in the blink of an eye. He then turns to the others and asks if they're not going to try to stop their boss. The men don't even care, and their leader asks if Chiel Wu isn't worried. The brute then realizes their leader went after our protagonist, but he isn't fazed and says his companions might be in danger now. And with a confident smile, he proposes a bet on who will fall first. The masked man gets annoyed by Chiel Wu's arrogance and prepares for a fight. The big guy then opens his arms and tells the guys to stop messing around and come on. Thus, the men all advance at once, ready to finish him. They attack from all sides with their razor-sharp swords and daggers. However, Wu just gives a smirk, as he knows they are no match for him, and with a burst of energy, he sends all the enemies flying at once. Meanwhile, the leader of the assassins feels the impact of the fight from afar and prepares himself. He then realizes his companion is in trouble and decides to hurry. In his mind, he plans to finish Samajian quickly to get the oil and go help. However, our hero appears right behind him and asks what he's thinking so hard about. The man is shocked, as he didn't feel his presence, and wonders how he got there. With a cold look, our protagonist asks where he is from and what he came here to do. The assassin then realizes that this must be the Samajian they are looking for. Seeing that our hero won't answer, he decides to charge forward without thinking. With his eyes glowing with rage, the man lunges with his sword in hand. Our protagonist then puts on a mask and dodges the blow with great ease. The assassin is furious for having missed and prepares a series of quick attacks. A shower of blows and sparks flies everywhere in the bamboo forest. However, our hero manages to stop the enemy's blade with his bare hand. And with absurd strength, he holds the sword, preventing it from hitting him. The weapon gets stuck in our protagonist's hand, and the assassin can't believe what he sees. The assassin screams in pain, but our protagonist shows no mercy. With the enemy disarmed, he prepares to question him about his intentions. And he asks where he is from and if he came for the clinic or the bluestone oil. The man is shocked to hear the mention of the oil, and doesn't know how to react. Our hero then confirms he came for the item and asks how he found out. The assassin finds himself cornered and realizes this could be his end, but our protagonist offers to spare his life if he answers his questions. However, the man simply collapses to the ground, surprising our hero with his action, and thus, he ends his own life so as not to reveal any information. Our boy then deduces he must have used a poison hidden in his mouth, and he thinks that next time, he should have told Wu to leave some alive. Just then, his friend appears and asks if the fight is over there. Our protagonist asks if he finished them all, and Wu proudly confirms. Samajian is speechless and just shakes his head in disapproval. And amidst all the bodies in the forest, he thinks he shouldn't have sent his friend. Back at the clinic, the aura of the two manifests, with our hero surrounded by red energy. Wu then releases his blue energy with a furious look at our protagonist, but our boy with his red eyes tells his friend to apologize immediately. The doctor is shocked because our hero's energy is even stronger than his giant friends. Then Wu bows and apologizes for taking out his frustration on them. Samajian also apologizes for his younger brother's mistake very politely. However, the woman says she is the one who should apologize and that there's no need for it. Because although she hoped there would be no problems, she doesn't rule out a possible relapse. The attendant praises her technique, saying it was a perfect acupuncture and that she did her best. But he explains that the symptom is more vicious than they thought and there was a miscalculation. Our protagonist is worried by the news and asks what miscalculation that was. The young man then admits he overestimated the effectiveness of the stalactite milk they got. He adds that the medicine was insufficient to deal with the girl's powerful energy. Wu gets annoyed and asks what kind of medicine they need if even that wasn't enough. The doctor then corrects him and says the problem is not the strength but the use of the medicine. She then explains that there are medicines that excel in either yin or yang energy, and she adds that Gina's illness needs something with extremely yang energy. Our protagonist then asks what kind of medicine they need for the treatment. The doctor reveals that they need the great revitalizing pill of Shaolin. The scene then returns to the butcher shop, where a traveler approaches the location. Wu then asks excitedly if they are going to rob the Shaolin temple. The brute takes a drink and asks if our hero is already going to the temple, but Samajian says he will think it over carefully, as his sister is already much better. Wu doesn't believe it and says he will go sooner or later. However, our protagonist denies it, because since the doctor is confident, there's no rush. He adds that he wants to stay with his siblings, because he hasn't been back for a long time, and that the journey will be long, so he needs to establish the butcher shop first. Wu then agrees, because if they both go, there will be no one to run the business. Our hero asks who they could teach and Wu doesn't understand. The big guy then suggests they teach Haiyan and Ho to take over. Wu then agrees that the trip should be postponed until the two learn the trade. Haiyan says it won't be a problem, but Wu worries about Ho's laziness. Suddenly, the younger brother appears running and desperately shouting for his brother. Haiyan stands up worried and asks what happened for him to be so agitated. With a trembling voice, Ho reveals that their older brother has been kidnapped. Haiyan is completely shocked by the news and can't believe what he just heard. The scene then returns to the forest, and our hero asks if the man is gone. Wu says yes and that he didn't even realize the guy had a poison pill. Our protagonist says it's a shame they won't find out who is behind this. He then says it won't happen again, as the stalactite milk is already gone. And with a cold look, our hero adds that if they come back, they will meet the same end. Chil-woo then jokes that it wouldn't be so bad, as it would add more excitement to life. Our protagonist gets annoyed and asks if he wants to see more blood after everything. The big guy looks embarrassed and says that's not exactly what he meant. And finally, our hero says he hates having his peaceful life disturbed, and his friend agrees. Our hero then tells Chil-woo to stop complaining and clean up the mess he himself made. And without another word, he turns his back on his friend and heads back to the clinic. Chil-woo is left alone in the forest and complains, wondering when it will all be over. After a while, he finally finishes the job and returns to the clinic, completely tired. Our protagonist just watches his friend arrive without saying a single word. He then asks if Chil-woo didn't set the forest on fire to clean everything up faster. The brute worries about the delay, and our hero says everything will be alright. But Chil-woo keeps talking about the doctor's family and the stalactite milk. Suddenly, the clinic's attendant comes out of the treatment room looking very tired. Our protagonist goes to him and asks anxiously about the result of the treatment. The young man then reveals that the acupuncture was a success and her condition has improved. Our hero and Chil-woo are completely shocked and happy with the news. Salmajian then takes the young man's hands and thanks him very much for the help and the miracle. The attendant then asks them to come inside so they can hear the detailed explanation. However, inside the room, the doctor appears to be exhausted and sweating a lot after the treatment. Upon entering the room, our hero's eyes widen at the scene before him. The doctor is sitting on the floor and explains that the bad smell is from the body's murky energy. Her guards help her up, but she says it was nothing serious. And then she reveals that although they did their best, they couldn't achieve a complete cure. Our protagonist is confused and says the attendant told him she had improved. The doctor throws a dirty cloth into a barrel and confirms that she is much healthier. However, she apologizes for not being able to cure the illness completely. Our hero thanks her, as he knows the technique can cause harm to the doctor herself. But the woman says it was fortunate to encounter a rare illness and use the stalactite milk. And she adds that treating patients is a duty and principle she must uphold. Chil-woo gets a serious and furious look, as he doesn't like what he's hearing. He then says he had a bad feeling ever since he heard the treatment failed. The doctor's guards also seem annoyed with the way she is acting. Our protagonist then tells his friend to stop that attitude right now. Chil-woo gives a mocking smile and comments on the luck the doctor had. The doctor's guards get annoyed and tell Chil-woo not to dare insult their lady. But the brute just releases his energy and asks if he said anything wrong. The two men advance, but our protagonist stops them with his own energy. The doctor and the attendant are shocked by the pressure they feel in the air. Suddenly, the younger brother Ho appears running and desperately shouting for his brother. Hyan asks what kidnap means and Chil-woo is also confused. The boy then explains that he heard his brother was kidnapped by thugs on a mission. Chil-woo gets furious and says the guys are completely clueless to do something like that. Hyan then decides they will go to the escort agency to investigate the case, and so, the three brothers and Chil-woo go to the Juhei escort agency. Ho points to the place and says that's where their brother used to work. They then enter the agency's courtyard, which is full of worried people. A crowd surrounds one of the employees and desperately asks about the kidnapped. A man with a mouth full of rotten teeth asks what these negotiations are. The employee then says he can't give details but that the hostages' lives are the priority. He then asks everyone to trust and wait, as they will bring everyone back safely. Ho isn't convinced and says these are just formal answers to stall the people. And he asks if they aren't planning other methods, like sending a rescue team. The employee is startled and asks who he is, and Ho introduces himself as a hostage's brother. Our protagonist and Chil-woo observe the scene, and the man says he will negotiate as much as possible. He then turns to the crowd and asks everyone to trust and wait a little. And without another word, the employee turns his back on the people and enters the building. Ho is suspicious, and Chil-woo says the guy doesn't seem sincere at all. The boy then sees a colleague of his brother, and decides to go ask what is happening. He calls the young man Jang Zong and asks if they are really negotiating as the man said. Jang Zong stammers and says yes, but Ho doesn't believe a word he says. So he drags him to a more private corner so they can talk alone. Our hero and Chil-woo watch the scene and decide to follow the two to hear the conversation. Ho then pressures the young man and asks how the situation is really going. Jang Zong then reveals that the thugs asked for an absurd amount of money for the ransom. Ho then asks how much they are asking for, and Jang Zong reveals it's 100 gold coins. The boy is completely shocked, as this is an impossible amount to get. Jang Zong then repeats the absurd amount, leaving Ho speechless with the situation. Suddenly, our hero and Chil-woo appear, and the young man asks why they didn't come in. Our protagonist explains that their younger sister fainted upon hearing the news. Our protagonist confirms she is fine now, leaving Jang Zong relieved by the news. The young man then takes a deep breath as at least one good thing happened amidst this chaos. Chiel Wu then changes the subject and asks how a small agency would pay 100 gold coins. But Zhang Zong defends the place, saying the Zhuhei agency is quite large in that region. Chiel Wu pressures him and asks if they aren't thinking of another way to solve this. The young man is shocked and asks how he knew they were assembling a rescue team. Chiel Wu says the atmosphere already indicated it, but that the agency doesn't seem to have the power for it. Zhang Zong then reveals they are asking for help from the surrounding areas and have already sent people. However, Chiel Wu thinks the thugs are already expecting this reaction and the plan won't work. Sima Jian then asks which thugs did this, as there is a line between them and the agencies. Zhang Xiong agrees and says they didn't learn their lesson even with their fortress destroyed. Our hero is surprised, as the mention of the fortress made him remember something. The young man explains it was the Golden Tiger Bandit camp, which was wiped out some time ago. And he adds that everyone in the region was very happy about what happened. Our protagonist then asks if the bandit camp has risen from the ashes. Zhang Zong reveals that the former leader of the bandit camp has returned to the location. Our protagonist falls silent, as the situation has just become much more complicated. He then calls his brother Ho, who looks at him without understanding. Samajan says he left Gina with a neighbor and tells Ho to take care of her. Ho gets worried and asks where he is suddenly going with everything that's happening. Chiel Wu then comforts the boy and tells him not to worry, as they will figure something out. The scene then changes to the main office of the Zhuhei escort agency. Inside, a man stands up shocked and asks if the news is really true. His subordinate confirms that the contact came from the Blaze escort agency and it's all true. The chief is very happy and says this is a great help from the heavens for them. The man reveals that the warriors of the Nam Gung clan have already departed for the bandit camp. The chief is surprised by the speed but remembers that the other agency was also attacked. So he says they also need to hurry to save the people. And so we see a landscape with mountains and a lot of fog, showing the dangerous path. At the bandit camp, some men are already on guard, waiting for any attack. Inside the camp, the bandit leader relaxes while eating and drinking peacefully. He then asks if there has been any reaction from the escort agency after everything. His subordinate says it's the 4th time they've done what he ordered. The leader gets annoyed because even with 4 hostages suffering, they haven't given any response. However, the henchman reveals that they actually made an interesting proposal. They explain they don't have the money now but can pay half first. The chief takes a drink and gets interested in the proposal they made. The man then says they promise to pay the rest if the bandits send half the hostages. The leader complains that his reputation was tarnished with the destruction of his camp. His henchman says they are mobilizing all the guards but still haven't found the culprit. Furious, the chief crushes the pot in his hand and releases his killing energy. He says he wants to find the culprit, but that rebuilding the camp is the priority. And for that, he had to bow down and ask for support from the elders, so he tells them to advance the plan and send the hostages' eyes and ears. Suddenly, a new figure appears and suggests that next time they send the heads. The bandit leader is surprised, and the man warns that if he goes too far, the reaction will be severe. He also says there's a risk of clans linked to the agency sending a subjugation squad. But the man gives an evil smile and says that's exactly what he wants to happen, because he trusts the Supreme Masters and the elders who are on his side in this fight. 2 strange men laugh and say that unless the Imperial Army shows up, there will be no surprises. The leader is silent for a moment, but soon understands the newcomer's plan, and so, he orders his henchmen to take the hostages' heads and send them immediately. Suddenly, the ground explodes and our hero and his friend Chiel will invade the place. The leader is shocked by the sudden explosion and doesn't understand what's happening. Our protagonist then kicks one of the men hard, sending him flying. Chiel Wu comments that the place was all destroyed and that they restored it quickly. The bandit chief asks who they are and if they are from the agency's rescue team. The other man says they are not from the team and asks what they are doing there then. Our hero tells him not to worry, as they just have a small shop in the market. And with an evil smile, he asks if the man is really the leader of the bandit camp. With a cold look, our hero says that if he is the leader, then he must fall right there. The chief gets angry at the audacity and charges forward to attack with his sword in hand. However, the other man stops him and asks him to wait, as he has a better idea. He then says to hand the 2 over to the elders, as their boredom has reached its limit. The leader gets the message and sheathes his sword to let the others have their fun. The 3 strange men approach, and one of them says he was getting bored. Chiel Wu then tells his captain to take care of the bandit chief, and he'll handle the rest. Our hero asks if he's not just saying that because he wants to fight a little. Chiel Wu admits it's a bit of both, and Samajian tells him to do whatever he wants. And so, the 4 elders position themselves for the fight against the brute. Chiel Wu then charges forward with all his might and lands a direct punch on one of the old men's faces. The man defends with his pipe but didn't expect so much brute force. The impact of the blow creates a wave of energy that sends the old man flying away instantly. The elder is completely shocked, as his whole body is numb from the blow. And before he can recover, Chil Wu is already in front of him for the next attack. The elder is shocked because Chil Wu defended his 60 years of energy attack with just his body, so he assumes a fighting stance and releases his red aura, preparing to fight seriously. But Chil Wu smiles and says the old man is interesting and at a master's level, so he will also fight seriously. The elder tenses up because the brute remains relaxed even after seeing his power. Chil Wu then taunts him with a smile, asking if he's not going to attack. The old man gets furious with the provocation and charges at the big guy, shouting at the young man, and so, he leaps into the air and prepares a powerful downward attack. The tip of his pipe glows with energy as he descends with full force for the attack. With an evil smile, the elder shouts that this time the blow hit its mark. However, his weapon shatters upon hitting our friend's body, who doesn't even flinch. The old man is completely stunned, as he didn't expect his weapon to break like that. Without wasting time, Chil Wu takes the chance and lands a powerful punch on the enemy. The impact is so strong that the elder flies away, and one of his friends is in shock. The man then runs to catch his companion, who is unconscious in the air. And with the old man in his arms, he wonders, frightened, what on earth just happened there? With his last breath, the defeated elder warns his companion to be careful. The man is shocked because one of the greatest masters of the forest was defeated in a single blow. Chil Wu gets annoyed, as he can't believe his protection was pierced by such a weak blow. He then turns to his captain and asks if his skill has diminished or if the old man was strong. Our protagonist then says bluntly that his skills have diminished over time. Chil Wu then challenges himself, saying that practicing on oxen and pigs wasn't enough. And with a serious look, he says it won't work and tells all the enemies to come at once. One of the elders then says they can't face him with pride and comes up with a quick plan. And so, a group of masked henchmen appears on the scene, ready for a group attack. The elder charges forward, and Chil Wu prepares to counterattack without being intimidated. With a precise punch, he hits the enemy in the face with devastating force. The impact shatters the ground and sends the man flying without any chance to defend. Taking the opening, the other men all charge at once with their swords. However, all the blades break upon hitting our giant friend's back, and with an evil smile, Chil Wu calls them a bunch of annoying flies. The last elder desperately shouts for his men to dodge the imminent attack, and with his eyes glowing, Chil Wu releases a wave of energy that sweeps the battlefield. All the henchmen go flying, screaming in pain from the force of the devastating attack. The man in red is completely shocked, as he can't believe what he just saw. With a smile, Chil Wu says he likes the fighting spirit of the last elder standing. The man then charges forward furiously and admits that Chil Wu is strong, but he will not surrender. And with a final effort, he prepares for a suicide attack against the big guy. Releasing his fire energy, he says that even if he goes down, he won't go down alone. However, Chil Wu says that's just the thought of a desperate old man. And with a single punch, he moves forward to end the fight once and for all. The clash between the two powers creates a massive explosion of energy and light. The elder coughs in pain as he can't withstand the force of our friend's blow. Without giving him time to recover, Chil Wu lands a series of blows. The man in red is stunned, as he didn't expect the elder to be defeated so easily, and before he can react, the last enemy is sent flying with a final blow. The man in red dodges his ally's body and Chil Wu calls him a coward. Desperate, the man begs for his life, but Chil Wu doesn't want to hear it. He tries to use his father's name to save himself, but the brute grabs him by the face. And without another word, he throws him against a wooden pillar with all his might. With all enemies defeated, Chil Wu says it was actually fun to fight a little. He then turns to his captain and says he's done and now only the leader is left. With a cold look, our hero says only he remains to complete the job. The bandit chief is shocked because Chil Wu defeated the greatest masters in an instant. And he adds that our protagonist didn't even have to move for the fight to end. Our hero then says they were the ones responsible for the destruction of the camp. The chief is stunned, as he finally found out who the culprits were for everything. With his eyes glowing with rage, he remembers all the work he put into rebuilding. And so, he shouts that he will finish the two of them with his own hands to get his revenge. Meanwhile, in the forest, the rescue team approaches the bandit camp. They then prepare for the attack, not knowing the fight is almost over. One of the men from the Nangan clan named Min complains about the path full of thorns and vines. But the leader of the escort agency, Ho Yugan, apologizes and says it's the fastest way. Another man from the clan named Jiang tells them to be understanding, as Min is still very young. He then warns everyone to remember that the priority is the safety of the prisoners, and he adds for them not to act recklessly and put them in danger. Suddenly, Jiang stops walking and gets a serious and worried look. He turns and tells his men to keep moving through the dense forest. Min then notices his reaction and asks what happened for him to stop like that. The man reveals that a fight started just ahead of them, but Min is surprised. Jaeyoung then says it seems the fight is already over, and Min wonders if another group arrived first. The agency leader says he heard they asked for help in several different places. Jaeyoung then says he doesn't know, but they need to hurry up anyway. Meanwhile at the camp, the bandit chief charges at our hero. A shower of sword strikes and red energy flies all over the place. The chief gets annoyed and asks if our protagonist is just going to keep dodging his attacks. Our hero then asks if he is truly indignant about the destruction of his camp. The chief doesn't understand the question, and our protagonist repeats it more directly. The man says of course he is, as he spent his whole life building the fortress and some brat destroyed it. Our boy then questions if he really thinks the place has any value since it was built on suffering. The chief gets angry and says that's what bandits do and it has nothing to do with him. Without giving him time to finish, our hero lands a powerful punch to his face. The impact is so strong that the man's head hits the ground hard. The wooden floor breaks from the force of the blow, and the chief is stunned. Our protagonist then reveals that 12 years ago, he was captured and sold like cattle. With the revelation, he stumps hard on the man's chest, who screams in pain from the attack. Sama Jian says he was treated worse than an animal and crossed the line between life and the end. And he adds that when he disappeared, his family survived in misery, and his mother passed away. With a punch to the wood, he vents his anger for everything he's been through in life. And without another word, he kicks the bandit chief away with all his might. And with that final blow, our hero ends the fight and his revenge once and for all. With a look of hatred, our hero says he couldn't even be with his mother in her final moments. The chief, fallen on the ground, is shocked to think that one of those he sold survived to get revenge. Our protagonist then says that as if that weren't enough, he kidnapped his brother again. Desperate, the man begs for his life and says he was wrong, asking for forgiveness. But our hero doesn't accept the apologies and says he will make him beg to be put out of his misery, and that when he tells him the location of the prisoners, he will allow him to pass on. Without another word, our protagonist uses an electric energy technique on the enemy. With his eyes glowing blue, he releases a powerful discharge on the bandit chief. The man screams in pain as he is zapped by our hero's technique. With a cold look, Sama Jian watches the man suffer the consequences of his actions. Suddenly, Jaeyoung arrives and shouts for our protagonist to stop that immediately. Our hero stops the attack, but his body is still surrounded by electric energy. He then turns to Cheol Woo and asks who the old man is and tells him to take care of the guy. With a smile, Cheol Woo says it will be a pleasure and faces the new opponent. Jaeyoung gets angry and shouts again, telling our hero to stop this madness. Cheol Woo then challenges him, telling him to try and make him stop this madness. Jaeyoung is not intimidated and charges with his sword in hand towards the brute. He then unleashes a powerful strike, but Cheol Woo manages to dodge it narrowly. The clash of energies creates a massive explosion of light and sparks everywhere. Jaeyoung gets a serious look, as he didn't expect the enemy to be so fast, and so, he unleashes a series of area attacks to try and hit the big guy. The man is shocked because even without using his full strength, his energy was easily deflected. Cheol Woo then compliments him, saying it wasn't bad for an old man like him. The brute adds that the fight will be more fun than the last one. Jaeyoung then realizes the fallen man is Peng Yo, saying and that his character is cruel. So he cleans his sword and prepares to fight seriously against Cheol Woo. With his sword glowing, he uses his Art of One energy of the blue sky technique. Cheol Woo smiles and says the old man is not ordinary and that now he can fight seriously too. Jaeyoung then uses his 12 swords of the blue cloud technique for the final attack, and with a swift movement, he unleashes a series of strikes against our giant friend. Cheol Woo then counters with a powerful punch that directly hits the enemy's attack. Jaeyoung is not fazed and says he won't be able to dodge the next blow that comes. And so, he leaps into the air and prepares a downward attack with all his strength. However, Cheol Woo manages to defend the blow and send the man flying with ease. Jaeyoung coughs up blood as he can't withstand the pressure of the brute's counterattack. He is then shocked, because he thought he could at least cause a serious injury. Cheol Woo then wipes a small scratch on his face with a serious look, and with an evil smile, he says it's been a while since he's seen that in a fight. The other men are stunned, wondering where a monster that can withstand the elder's final blow came from. Min then shouts for everyone to protect the elder and charges forward to attack with his sword, and so all the men surround Cheol Woo, ready for a group battle. But Cheol Woo says this numbers tactic doesn't work on everyone. Jaeyoung then shouts for his men to retreat, as the fight is not over yet. Min is confused and doesn't understand why he is telling everyone to retreat now. The elder then shouts furiously and asks if he wants to tarnish the honor of the Namgung clan. Cheol Woo then prepares for the fight and says that now things have gotten interesting. Suddenly, our hero interrupts him, and Cheol Woo asks what happened. The brute turns and notices something strange on his captain's face. With a confused look, he asks what happened to our protagonist's face. Our hero remains silent and stares at the group of men from the Nangang clan. And with a scar on his face, he asks if they are really from the famous Namgang clan.